Welcome to the explainer. Let me ask you something right off the bat. How many times have you carefully planted your onions in the spring, only to end up totally frustrated by tiny bulbs, super slow growth, or plants that just shoot straight up into flowers instead of, actually growing the onion? It is incredibly frustrating and honestly, so common. But today, we're going to flip the script on traditional onion growing. We are tackling those huge gardening headaches head on today. I'm talking about rotting bulbs in muddy spring soil, those depressingly small yields, and the absolute dread of bolting, where the plant just prematurely flowers. The ultimate, proven solution to all of this? It's planting winter onion sets, what we commonly call arpagjik. By just shifting your planting calendar, you can literally bypass all these headaches entirely. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. We'll start with exactly why you should plant winter onions, then move on to climate and soil prep. After that, we'll walk through the perfect planting process, followed by winter care and spring growth, and we'll wrap the whole thing up with harvesting and some really great pro tips. All right, section 1, why plant winter onions? Let's debunk some major garden myths. When you compare spring to winter planting, it is honestly like night and day. Think about spring planting, usually happening between late February and mid-March. You're forcing the onions to battle through warming soils, a ton of emerging pests, all while they are just desperately trying to establish roots. And get this, if you're even 15 days late planting in the spring, your yield drops by a massive 30%. No way, right? Winter planting, on the other hand, lets those bulbs establish a really robust, deep root system while the garden is totally dormant. So when spring finally rolls around, they're already highly drought resistant, they've got this massive head start, and they're primed for an incredibly early harvest. Now, you can't just grab any old onion and plant it in the winter. You've got to choose specific short-day wintering varieties. These are specifically selected so they won't bolt when that harsh spring cold hits. You actually have some really fantastic options here. Red Carmen is going to give you these gorgeous, sweet violet red bulbs. Stirrun is an absolute workhorse for long storage with a nice, sharp flavor. Snowball gives you a delicate, sweet white onion. And then you have varieties like Radar and Shakespeare, which are just legendary for their extreme winter hardiness. Moving right along to section 2, prep for climate and soil, because timing is absolutely everything here. Oh, and stick around because I'm going to reveal a really amazing baking soda trick in just a second. So this number is basically your golden rule, 12 degrees Celsius. You have to wait for the soil temperature at a depth of about 5 centimeters to drop below this mark. Why? Well, you want the onion sets to root properly in the soil, but you absolutely do not want them growing long green leaves above the ground before winter hits. If those leaves get taller than, say, 5 to 10 centimeters, they're going to freeze and die. This creates a very specific, critical timeline you need to follow. The ideal window opens up around mid-October, and it generally slams shut by late November. The absolute sweet spot is getting them in the ground 2 to 3 weeks before the permanent winter frosts arrive. And definitely pay attention to soil moisture. The dead should be just lightly moist, enough to work with, but never muddy or waterlogged. That's just asking for cold, anaerobic conditions that lead straight to rotting. Okay, here is that highly effective expert trick I promised you. Before you put those little bulbs into the ground, soak them in a simple baking soda solution. This acts as a gentle yet super effective disinfectant. It neutralizes fungal spores and gives your arpeggic a perfectly healthy, fully protected start in the dirt. Let's get our hands dirty. Section 3, the perfect planting process. Let's go step by step. Before we even start digging, check out this totally surprising fact. Your intuition probably tells you that bigger bulbs are going to grow bigger onions, right? Actually, scratch that. For winter planting, it's the exact opposite. You want the smaller bulbs, specifically the ones right around 10 to 15 millimeters, to grow your big, impressive onion heads. Those smaller bulbs are way less likely to bolt and give you unwanted flower stalks. If you do have larger bulbs, say 20 to 25 millimeters, just sort those out and plant them separately so you can harvest them early as fresh green spring onions. Now, let's talk garden geometry. Proper spacing is non-negotiable here. It gives the plants vital air ventilation, which is crucial for preventing fungal diseases like downy mildew. You're going to want 25 to 30 centimeters between your rows, and within the row itself, space the bulbs 10 to 15 centimeters apart. Or, if you're planning on thinning them out early for those green onions, you can tuck them in closer, about 5 to 8 centimeters apart, and just pull every other plant in the spring. So, the crucial point here is planting depth. Always position the bulb with the pointed tip facing straight up. The golden rule is that the soil covering the bulb should be exactly twice the thickness of the bulb itself. That usually means planting them 2 to 4 centimeters deep, so the little tip is just barely covered. Once they're nestled in, water them immediately. This settles the soil tightly around the roots and tells the plant it's time to start rooting. Once those first serious frosts start threatening, usually around late November, you need to bring out what we like to call the thermal blanket. You just add a nice 5 to 10 centimeter layer of mulch over the bed. We're talking straw, dried leaves, sawdust, whatever you have. This is brilliant because it protects the bulbs from those wild temperature swings. But most importantly, it stops the freeze-thaw cycle of the ground from literally pushing your bulbs up and out of the soil. All right, section 4, winter care and spring growth. This is when the garden starts waking up from dormancy. To get the absolute best growth, you'll want a precise 3-step feeding schedule. In early spring, about 7 to 10 days after the snow melts, give them a hit of nitrogen fertilizer, like urea, to really kickstart that leaf growth. Then, 15 days later, follow up with a combined fertilizer. Finally, in late spring, when those big bulbs are actively forming, you're going to switch over to a phosphorus and potassium fertilizer, like superphosphate. But hey, a huge warning here. Do not go crazy with the nitrogen late in the season or it will seriously delay the ripening of your onions. Now that massive head start your winter onions got, it actually builds a natural defense against pests. Take the onion fly, a notorious garden villain. Its first flight usually begins in late April, and the larvae love to eat into the stems. But because your onions were planted way back in the fall, they have such a huge advantage. By the time late April rolls around, they are physiologically robust enough to literally outgrow the damage from the onion fly and thrips. It's like nature is doing the pest control for you. Almost there. Section 5, harvesting and pro tips. This is all about securing the best possible yield. This right here is a critical step that so many beginners completely miss. You have to stop watering entirely 2 to 3 weeks before you plan to harvest. Why does this matter? Well, keeping the soil dry at the very end of the growth cycle stops the bulbs from rotting in the ground. And even better, this dry down period hardens the outer skins, which drastically increases how long your onions are going to last in winter storage. Now, what if the absolute worst happens? What if a sudden, crazy spring freeze causes some of your onions to bolt? Don't panic, here is your rapid response rescue plan. Early in the morning, when the plant is pumped full of water and breaks really cleanly, just snap off that flower stalk. The very next day, feed the plant with potassium and phosphorus to force all that energy right back down into the bulb. Then, on the 3rd day, water it moderately just to help it recover from the shock. It's a lifesaver. Of course, we do have to throw in a quick professional disclaimer. Results are always going to vary depending on your region and your specific microclimate. If you're gardening in a wide-open, windy field, you might need to plant a bit earlier and use a thicker layer of mulch. But if you're in a cozy, sheltered valley, you might need to plant a little later. You always want to observe your local weather patterns, wait for that sustained drop below 12 degrees Celsius, and honestly, consult your local gardening experts to fine-tune these timelines for your own backyard. But the bottom line is this: by shifting your mindset and getting that arpajack into the ground before the snow even falls, you completely bypass the pests, you dodge all those spring planting delays, and you set yourself up for an incredibly rewarding, surprisingly early harvest. So I leave you with this final thought. Knowing all these incredible advantages, are you going to transform your winter garden and try planting winter onion sets this year? I really hope you do. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy gardening.